Welcome to this bonus episode of LeadTime. This is Chris Croghan and Sarah Stenson from Luther House of Study, talking with myself as well as Dr. Ryan Bredow. That's the extra voice that you hear in this conversation. I've interviewed Ryan. He's a faculty mentor with the Luther House of Study, as well as a vice president at Grand Canyon University. So this was after 5 hours of training on being a faculty mentor, and we started just having a higher level conversation around the differences between the academic environment, which we're not downgrading. We think there's certainly a role for that. But we also recognize that we have students right now who would like a degree, who are bivocational and co-vocational, and our students are not going to go residential, and the LCMS does not offer an online MDiv option. We're praying that with curiosity, there is assessment and analyzing that takes place of our partnership with the Luther House of Study. We are adding our own ULC classes. We've had a leadership class that's taken place, and we're looking for classes in ethics, pastoral care. A number of people in our network are exploring that. We actually have a Greek class that we're looking to get forward, as well as a Hebrew option for a number of our students. I know the languages have been a conversation where we feel like there's an opportunity for improvement. Again, we're not competing with our seminaries. We actually love academics, but in the middle of this conversation, it gets a little spicy, as they say. We care about those that are in the respective ivory tower. Just had a great conversation with Reverend Dr. Robert Kolb on LeadTime. That'll be coming out here soon. And he recognized, my calling is ivory tower. There is a step or two that I'm removed from the local context. So we love academics, but we care most about training up pastors to fill our over 1,000 pulpits being suboptimally served. And if anything Chris says or I say that offends academics, we'd love to hear from you to dismiss what we say as corrupt. Not people are not corrupt, but the system itself, maybe a better word than corrupt is just broken, in need of repair and analysis to more faithfully serve the local church. And if you're watching the video on YouTube, it may look like I'm rude. I'm just taking notes actually on my computer, which is simply out of view. So enjoy this bonus episode of LeadTime. Thanks so much.
So we're going to answer on two levels. How does Luther House survive without getting a single dime from any of our students?
Because that's the first thing everyone needs to know as you are ambassadors. We at Luther House, we're not even on salary. We don't get any money from the seminary. So we get zero revenue, not one penny from the students, even indirectly.
So we're independently funded.
It is.
Introducing
that, it's interesting. As ambassadors, we do not have any financial interest in
getting a single students.
No, that's not. We're not.
So we're not this with concordance. No. But the reason that is because we've existed since 2006, and we've developed a network of people and supporters that have recognized what our mission truly has always been. And so that's brought a lot of people in. There's only been one significant financial supporter in the history of Luther House that has not experienced our content.
Oh, wow.
So it's all grassroots.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
we're 100% donor funded.
Yeah.
100%.
Congregations and individuals.
But so are your Concordias.
Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, they do have student revenue. But that's a newer thing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
The student support, because but you see, this is part of it is we have congregations that we don't even know now anymore. We have never even talked to that are sending us their benevolence checks because they know what we're doing, right? Because they see the mission orient as opposed to the institution stuff. So we've never even interacted with some of these congregations. They don't have students. They just look what they're doing.
Well,
so it's the generosity breeds generosity kind of thing. From a business model, then what happened with Greg Henson at the seminary was he recognized why institutions, he has his MBA, he doesn't have actually a theological degree. He recognized why the institutions went like this financially. And it was partly because of the overhead, but the business model, because what happened to the demographic of the seminary students was, A, you were getting fewer students, but also Now, this isn't so much in Missouri because you don't become a part-time student in Missouri. At one of the Concordias, you're always a full-time student, I assume. And you also aren't doing it online. But what happens at every other ATS theological seminary is you can become a part-time student anytime in the process, or you can be just doing something online. So then the residential component reduced the income to the seminary when they were doing online because you don't have people paying rent. Additionally, if you're part-time, you had to build your structure around having 50 full-time students, but now 25 of them just took a part-time credit load the next semester. You just ran in the red. So if you make it a subscription, you have your income is now much more stabilized. But then you build your overhead to meet that, but then you scale it by now, for example, having someone sit in a classroom 3 times a week for an hour each time. Now 9 classes, so they teach a full load. So you got 9 classes, and they're sitting in a classroom for 9 hours talking the same thing all the time to people, is very inefficient financially in this day and age with technology, right? Because now which is why we've captured it all there, put it on things, but we aren't shorting them on their education, but it's somewhat evergreen content. What has happened in higher education, being one who's been in it, again, I started teaching at undergraduate level in 2004, taught undergraduate students until technically last year, but really haven't had an undergraduate student in my classroom for about the last 5 years because of a whole nother thing. But anyway, so I taught that. I've been teaching seminary level, all this kind of stuff. So I know how the system works. And I know that what most people do that are in the classroom teaching is they're experimenting their content. They're trying out that's their lab for their lectures so that they can write the book. That's what academics do, right? That's very poor for vocational training of people that are going to be preachers. But which is why Missouri is slow on that insofar as they still have, that's why I'm okay with some of their purity mentality because they're still teaching the core stuff. But what happens in the academy as a whole is you always have to come up with something new in order to get published and or to get tenure or to get your PhD. How do you say something new about the Bible? Right? Well, you have to actually say something not about the Bible in your Bible content, which is why you end up with all the historical critical methods, blah, 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 blah. So I understand what Missouri is doing, why they're preserving this kind of thing, so on and so forth. But as a result of a college professor using the classroom as their lab to try out what they're going to produce next for the academy, you've lost the actual core content. So, but if the professor is there to make an evergreen resource, which is what MOOCs started to become, right? So we were just like, we're going to do MOOCs, but actually, no. Those are the online free classes like you can get at Stanford or whatever, So then you can
online
open content or something.
Yeah. And so we were like, why aren't we creating MOOCs for our students? But
Same thing
scale.
with the flipped classroom. We were kind of on the front end of that, trying to figure out how do we flip it to free up our time to interact with students as opposed to saying the same thing over and over and over.
Because if I sit in there and doing a full teaching load, there's 9 hours of my week at least.
Saying the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is financially inefficient.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So, but at the same time, that's why the average hour becomes the average hour.
Yeah.
I don't have to really work. I just produce an old lecture again, or and then I'm especially in my own individualistic puddle. I'm not really interested in the student. I'll hold all office hours, but they're not really interested in what I'm doing. So I get to write my book and get my name out there and work within my guild of the Reformation Research Program or blah blah blah. And you end up in your own little silo.
We did that.
Yeah.
No.
I've done that. I've been in that game.
Yeah.
This is why I know all these people in St. Louis and a few of them in Fort Wayne and stuff, because I actually interacted with them on that academic level, and great.
As did I, for the record, went to the International Lutheran Congress.
You gotta stop talking. You gotta stop saying this stuff to me because that game
Yeah.
is, it's corrupt. It's very sad.
So, but you see, but this is why actually, so Sarah and I have been published in journals, like high level journals, and in encyclopedia books. I haven't published a book because I've been too focused and busy on what we do with Luther House, because that really is our calling, But right now, Sarah and I are like, we're writing all these, what we call evergreen lectures that we're putting in their videos. And I'm like, all this stuff we're putting, because the challenge for the professor, which some people don't like to do, is when you write a lecture that you're going to make evergreen for a video, you've got to be on.
Fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
You do not want to say something and say, I just spoke there.
On something.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be bang. And it's got to be within less than 20 minutes that you're getting your point across, yet at the same time rhetorically captivating.
Right.
That we like. So.
Did we answer? Did he? I think we're off on a different tangent.
No, but this is part of it.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
So just to, you guys can't see this. I can.
Business model.
How do we do the business model? So here's a lecture that we're doing. This is one
Tomorrow.
15,
Yeah,
20,
we're recording a
15 minute, maybe at most video on natural. Oh, that's 14. I'm going to do 15. Then I'm in the
paganism.
yeah.
Yeah, that one we're stuck on right now.
So I'm finishing this up. But this is on paganism and science in relation to, so this is for sure about the creator. How you deal with paganism, how you deal with scientific stuff, and natural theology. And at most, it's going to be 15 minutes, me talking into a video. I probably spent 40 or 45 hours to get to that.
No, it's true. We've had some of these that are incredibly dense content that we had to go deep on.
And I'm dealing with Homer, the Odyssey, the Iliad, Plato, Aristotle, all this stuff in a paragraph. Each one of those basically, but I have to make it accessible to the student. So this is really hard work. But once it's evergreen, it's evergreen. But that's part of the model. As you get that evergreen, the problem that we're going to have is getting other people coming in to follow us to do this. That's where the business model is going to be.
You beat me to my next question.
Yeah.
What's your biggest barrier for growth?
And it's not growth in.
Currently, we don't really have any barriers for growth because our mindset has always been partnerships like this, which actually answers the scalability as well. So currently and for the next 10 to 15 years, given our age, Luther House is fine. The growth is actually going to, for our purposes, the biggest challenge is going to be who replaces us to continue the mission of Luther House. And so that
Who's the next generation?
we're waiting for God literally to drop it in our laps, but I'm confident he will, because logically, Luther House should not exist. I mean, this is unique in the landscape of theological education in North America. And you know now, all of you, it's two people plus Lars now at the core of this huge, what's turned into a pretty significant enterprise, in spite of two, small town, both of us from Iowa, not
in the middle of Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Yeah, in the middle of, as Elizabeth, the bishop of the ELCA said, small Baptist seminary, a small town in a small state.
Wow.
I should have said students to you. So, yeah, good question. Exactly.
Goal
No.
to do this.
No, so there is no strategic plan that now we're seeing the fruit of it. We've just kind of been pulled along all the way through.
So we've capitalized on what we see as the market giving us the opportunity to make the economy work, theological education.
You've been listening to LeadTime, a podcast of the Unite Leadership Collective. The ULC's mission is to collaborate with the local church to discover, develop, and deploy leaders through biblical Lutheran doctrine and innovative methods. To partner with us in this gospel message, subscribe to our channel, then go to theuniteleadership.org to create your free login for exclusive material and resources, and then to explore ways in which you can sponsor an episode. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for next week's episode.